Hey folks, and welcome back. So in this video you're going to see a camera position on the Emmaselle II, and there's going to be 5 videos in this little series, and it's going to be 5 different camera positions, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But before we get too far into this, I want to talk about my sponsor, RTL Fasteners. Really cool company. If you go to them and buy more than $50 a product and use code DA30, you get 30% off your order. If you need, you know, like the nylock nuts, the 440s, the 256s, the 632s, washers, lock washers, servo screws, all that stuff for our airplanes, they've got it. Okay? So what I want to do is, if you're not familiar with the Emmaselle II, it is an airplane that I designed many years ago. It's electric, radio control aircraft. I know it's big, 188-inch wing. And I'll dive in a little bit more about the specs in a minute. But in this video, we're going to dive into a flight. And the flight's only about 3 minutes long, but I'm going to discuss with you what it was like during this flight, because I've had people ask for this kind of video. So just so you know, let's get this started, and I'll explain a little bit better. So this is going to be video 1, cam position 1. And this is just a brief little 10-second view. Then we're going to have another video called video number 2, camera position 2. And you can see my cool simulated exhaust firing away there. Then we're going to have position number 3. This is from inside the cockpit. And yes, the camera moved like a head, which is pretty slick and snazzy. Then we've got one under the wing, which shows the simulated exhaust even better. And finally, we're going to have one that is positioned right under the wing, looking right at my robot baby named Olive. And she is a heck of a pilot and learning and getting ready for her final check ride. So now we're going to jump into part 1. Emmaselle II, 188 span, about 6,000 watts, 61 pounds, and LMA 1 under AMA. So the way I start a flight is, I've already done my pre-flight here. I've got the batteries all plugged in. There's 7 of them, 4 for the motor, 2 for a receiver, and 1 for my simulated exhaust. And if you notice, I'm working the rudder a lot as I'm pulling it out there with my left hand, because it's hard to pull this airplane out without using the rotor to steer it. It's 61 pounds and it's a behemoth. So here I am. I armed the motor, and if you don't have a motor cutoff on your electric airplane, shame on you. All radios have it. If you set it up as an electric airplane, there is a motor cutoff. And you need to have that to arm and disarm that propeller. So you notice how much rudder I'm holding here, because there's a really heavy wind coming down the runway. So as I add power, I always go almost full down elevator to get the tail flying. That gets your rudder into the slipstream a lot faster, so you can actually control your airplane. Tail draggers need to have the tail in the air as you're taking off. So here I'm just going to go up and do a couple of circuits. I'm going to do some figure 8s. Now I did have a spotter that was on my left-hand side that you couldn't see. Okay, and this is at the event called CEF. It's pretty early still in the morning, probably like 10 o'clock-ish. Not a lot of people are flying yet, maybe 3 planes in the air. If there's 10 or 12 planes in the air, I normally don't go up. But here I'm just going to do some figure 8s and a couple of ovals. It's about a 3 or 4 minute flight. I'm always off the power. Once I'm up about 100 feet, I pull back to about 40% power. That gives me a 7-minute flight on my batteries, with 1 go around as a backup. You can see really how turbulent it is, how much my wings are flexing on this day. It was 15 or 20 mile an hour wind, and I will fly in virtually any wind, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when I'm taxiing, because I'm going to point out something that's never happened to me. But here I'm just flying around. Now my spotter is looking at the sky, not my airplane. A good spotter is looking where everybody else is. They're not looking at the airplane that they're spotting for, okay? So I'm just cruising around here. Part of this flight was for me to get used to how to move the robot's head while I'm flying, because on my left hand, with my index finger, I had a little proportional pot that I'm opening and closing to move her head left and right. So I'm flying the airplane, I'm managing the speed, but I'm always also trying to get used to moving her head around. Sometimes I'll flip a switch and her head is tied into the ailerons. So if I move the ailerons, her head moves. But this is just me flying around. So here I am, basically, you know, I'm going into the wind. So this plane is just floating here. I'm actually on final approach here. And this plane is barely penetrating the 20-mile-an-hour wind. So it's just a floater. The cube wing loading on this is like a trainer airplane. And so I touch down here. Now, what's really interesting, I have brakes, differential brakes on this. So I've got the left wheel locked up. But watch what happens right there. You see my tail lift? That's the first time that ever happened to me. So if you got brakes and you got one brake locked up, when you're adding power, you are wanting to lift the plane up on its landing gear. But with that really heavy tailwind right there, and me having full up elevator to try to hold the tail down, the wind was actually getting under the elevator. And right as I pivoted around, that air got under my tail, it lifted it. So now you notice I don't have a lot of up elevator taxiing back. You always have to be focusing on what you're doing with the airplane when they're this big. Now here I've got the right front wheel locked up. You notice it pivots around the gear there a little bit. I love having differential brakes on this because it's just so cool in a model aircraft. Now watch right here. I locked up the front right, and I'm going to pivot right around that tire. And now watch, the propeller stops. Now that's my spotter off the wing there. And we're all going to lie here and talk about how great pilots we are on the wind. Yeah, nobody could have flown as good as we are. You know, everybody likes to lie. So here, I take the plane back into my makeshift hangar, which is a 20 by 12 tent. I took out the front two supports and made a little suspension bridge thing there to hold up the front of the tent. But notice I've already got spectators coming up to the airplane. That's the reason you want to have the motor cutoff switch, because that motor is disarmed right now. But out of pure paranoia, you'll notice the first thing I do is go over there and I unhook my flight pack batteries. Because and look at me, I'm double checking to make sure my switch is in the off position, it's not armed. And I am unhooking my batteries and I'm going to set them on the ground under the wing. And that way I know my plane is safe, because I am absolutely terrified of, you know, it's a 32-inch prop with a 9-horsepower electric motor. It could kill you. So, and I've always got spectators wanting to come up and talk to me, and sometimes I'm almost rude, so whoa, stand back, this engine could still be hot. But you got to think safety first when you're flying airplanes this size, people. But notice I'm taking each of my 4 flight packs out and I'm setting them down on the ground, and that's what I should be doing, because that's a 32, it's a Vest 32-inch prop on the front of this airplane, and it turns about 7,000 RPM. So I just wanted to share that quick little video. There's going to be 4 others I'm going to do in this little series. But I want everybody to kind of understand, flying these giant airplanes is not dangerous. They're a responsibility. But so is flying any size model aircraft. My Avante level flies about 95 miles an hour, and it weighs about 7 pounds. You hit somebody with a 7-pound object going 95 miles an hour, and you're going to hurt them. Big airplanes have the perception that, oh my gosh, that could kill me. Any model aircraft, in my opinion, that weighs over 2 or 3 pounds, that goes 100 miles an hour, is going to hurt you. One thing I like about giant airplanes is my plane flies in level with no wind at 37 miles an hour. That's my cruise speed. I've got it in my ear. If you go back and look in the video, you'll see I had a earplug in my earphone in my ear, and that's my telemetry, and it gives me my battery capacity, or actually my battery voltage. It gives me my GPS movement, and it gives me an altitude. And it's nice having that in my ear. I have it set with some alarms. If my voltage gets below a certain point, it says warning and tells me my voltage. And I don't like to land with my batteries under 3.75 volts per cell. Now, if I hear that in my ear, as soon as I pull the power back to idle, it normally recovers the 3.8 volts a cell, which is perfect. But I just want everybody to get comfortable with giant scale airplanes, that there's no voodoo witchcraft in them except the insanity of building it, the insanity of carrying it around a trailer, the insanity of, you know, sometimes I'm jealous of my friend that shows up with his airplane, pulls it out of his trunk, sets it there, throws a charged battery, and goes fly. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know, I got to do my pre-flight. That takes about 15 minutes. You know, putting the airplane together is not a big deal for me. To put the wings on the Emmaselle only takes me maybe 5 minutes. Seriously, it just slides onto the spar. I have 2 632 screws that holds it on, and I got the 2 servo wires to connect, 1 for each wing. So assembling the Emmaselle is not hard at all. Getting it out of the trailer or getting it someplace without beating the hell out of it, that's where large airplanes take a responsibility. A little bit, you know, it's maddening sometimes, but it's absolutely a blast to fly. So I'm going to quit jibber jabbering here. If you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please do it. If you have not been a long-time follower, welcome. A couple of key things. I want you to have an awesome day. I want you to rock on. I want you to take a kid flying. RC aircraft, no matter if it's a helicopter, drone, or anything, is one of the coolest ways for people to understand engineering, physics, maybe even chemistry if you're blowing up LiPo batteries. There's so much to learn in model aviation, folks, and I just hope that people look at the plus side of it, not the negative side, because to me it's one of the coolest things in the world you can do. And if you get a kid hooked on this, I guarantee you they're going to do better in school. You know, sitting and playing Call of Duty when you're 8 years old and murdering people is probably not going to be the best things for when you get into astronomy or physics in school. So take it easy, everybody. Rock on and take care. Bye-bye.